Oz, talk to me a little bit about how you approach having a conversation about death in this movie. It gets summed up by the characters in a way that I think is quite succinct, which is, man, that sucks. It's a refrain the characters keep coming back to.
Yeah, man, that sucks, and everybody dies, and that's life, right? Like those are the bites that are sort of the most amuse-bouche, if they could be that. When I sat down with the material and I was trying to figure out what it is, right? Because when you're writing something, you're developing something, you're trying to have a tip on the spear, right? You're trying to be like, I know what this is, and if I can send it all the way through, and it's simple, and it's pithy, and it's sort of a sentence, and it's in one idea, you can kind of get there. And so with the monkey, I found myself just sort of thinking about it and being like, oh, well, here's what it's not. It doesn't jump on you. It doesn't chase you down the hallway. It doesn't stab you with its drumsticks. It doesn't claw your eyes out. Its eyes don't even move. It's essentially inert. And these things happen around it. And so I got into this trip with myself about it where it was like, well, in that way, it's like, if we're saying that the monkey's around when people live or die, then the monkey's just sort of like this weird deity almost. It's like this weird kind of idol, or this sort of this icon, or a god of some kind. And it's just sort of inert, but it has this emanating force. It's almost like the monkey's, like it says in the picture, is like life, right? Like sometimes you die, sometimes you don't die, right? Sometimes the person next to you dies and you don't die. And so the quality of just the randomness of all things and the inevitability of all things, he stands for that while never actually doing that. So once I connected to that, it just became very elemental. It's like, all right, monkey or no monkey, everybody dies. Like, it doesn't take the monkey to kill somebody. Life kills you. Everybody dies by life. When I got that sort of perspective on it, the rest of it came pretty easy, because I felt like what I was saying was at least true and sort of simple and kind of direct and sort of undeniable, right? And it sort of treated this essential fact of living, that it stops, with a smile. And it felt like the right tone to me.
Everybody dies. And that's life.
I think one of the most impactful deaths in the movie to me is Lois. And it's a death that you handle in such a way that straddles this line between comedy and horror. There's much more weight to that death than any other death in the movie. Can you talk about the way that you constructed that sequence?
Their feelings about their mom that's the center of the picture, right? That's the thing that tethers the whole experience. And it drives them into their adulthoods. It drives them towards their reconciliation. It turns out to be sort of the essential disconnect when they finally come together towards the end, and Bill, the bad brother, sort of has to admit, like, I didn't realize that she was your mom too. Like, I didn't put that together. He had such sort of like ownership over his mom. Wanting to really elevate that character, the loss of my own mom was a big part of what I was sort of working with in this movie, and the subsequent relationship with my brother that sort of had its passage after that. So I wanted to really treat her with just such kindness, right? I didn't want to do something to her that felt like meat grinder. You know, like, there's plenty of meat grinder in this movie. And I wanted to give her something just a little more, it's still bad, but just a little less destroying. Do you know what I mean? Like, I didn't want to destroy her, because that she's the center of good for the picture, and I wanted to put a little bit of, just a little softness, just a little sort of a gentle touch on what happened to her.
I think Oz's instinct to keep the mother's death be a sweeter death and not one where you're sort of laughing at it is the right instinct to go with, because she is the touchstone, she is the emotional backbone for these characters and the drive for the film. So trying to play that too comedic just takes away from the importance of her passing.
No, I mean, I think that the entire movie, it mirrors life in the sense that you don't know what's going to happen to anybody at any time. You can get up on an ordinary day and things just go to hell. You just can't decide. And that shows up in the way that the monkey twirls its sticks. Then all at once, something happens to somebody, but you don't know who it's going to be.
You got any advice?
I think that the most important thing for you to remember is try not to kill everybody around you.
Switching gears here, we see the effect that moment has on Hal and Bill through the rest of their lives. I think Bill, especially, the way you handle that character in this movie, you choose to have him wearing, I believe it is an amalgamation of his childhood funeral suit for his mother and his flaming button-up t-shirt, which I felt weirdly seen by. That was an uncomfortable moment for me. I think I had that shirt when I was a kid. Can you talk about that design choice for Bill and how that speaks to his character?
His funeral suit became sort of his second skin, right? Because your mom's funeral, and then you don't want to change out of it because there's something in the psyche about I'm going to freeze this moment. Grief is a weird thing, and it's super disorienting experience to be in deep grief. And so I wanted to create this kid who's so knocked sideways by his mom dying that he kind of couldn't evolve. He couldn't even change out of his clothes. He couldn't even change out of his funeral clothes. And then, of course, he's still wearing it when he turns the key and my character, Uncle Chip, gets it. And so the idea was that it was this sort of second skin for him that really marked, this time in their lives when death was, you could almost taste it. And so when he kind of reconnects as an adult and gets into this sort of avenging angel, I'm going to get my revenge on my brother for killing my mom. When he gets into that mode, it just made sense, and he finds the little suit in his aunt's closet. It just made sense to me that he would reassume that skin, that was his armor, right? Like his armor around these funerals was he's going to wear this black suit and he was not going to take it off, and it was going to keep him somehow contained, and it was going to have some sort of magical thinking around funerals. Like, if I take the suit off, there'll be another funeral. If I don't take the suit off, there won't be any more funerals. It'll be fine. This kind of weird magical thinking about how to stave death off. And then as an adult, he finds it again and kind of turns it into his supervillain costume. That was the idea, right? Was that he was going to end up in sort of like a supervillain a supervillain disguise that was going to be as goofy as we could think of a way to make it.
Stephen, I have to imagine when you saw Bill's costume, that must have been one of those moments for you where you realized, Oz is taking this in a crazy direction.
No, I mean, I understood what he was up to with that, and I liked it. I liked it a lot. And, the thing is, we can analyze this to and back, but basically, it's just balls to the wall. And he knew instinctively what he was going to do. And all of this analysis is so much icing on the cake in a way. What I do is very instinctual, and I think that what Oz did was instinctual too. And to liken it to those Roadrunner cartoons is perfect. That's exactly what it is. What you do is you take it to the next level. You take it to a place where it's just f***ing absurd. You can't believe what you're seeing. And there are several reviews that I've seen that liken this in a way to the Final Destination movies. But that's not really it. It's really Roadrunner, and it's the Acme company, where everything blows up.
I want you to know we're going to do our very best with you boys. It's just that our very best might be pretty bad.
It does go full absurd and surreal by the end. I believe one of the final shots in the film is of one of the four horsemen of the apocalypse at a stoplight. When did that image come into your mind when you were designing this film?
We had referenced the sort of the Pale Rider a few times, and I say it in a lot of interviews. I go for some of the wacky that's in the Bible. There's some crazy in the Bible. There's just some good free language.
I believe that's
right?
well
Like,
known.
just-
Yeah.
It's just like, it's like going to your Redbox and like renting a movie. It's just like going to the Bible and being like, I can take this. This is crazy.
This guy almost kills his kid. What?
This is gnarly words. Like there's some wild shit in the Bible. I planted that through there, and then I just kind of got towards the end, and I was like, I think I should probably just go for it. I mean, at this point, we've reached such levels of absurdity. We might as well just drag the Pale Rider out and show him and have him be a part of the universe, because all bets are off, right? Like, we've created this unhinged reality. Let's bring mythos into it. And also, it helped me that I didn't have any mythology around the monkey, right? Like, I sort of repelled the sort of baseline, more generic need in a movie to sort of know where this thing comes from, or to have some kind of backstory. Oh, they found it in a hole in India. You know, and I was just like,
saying that.
yeah, it's like, I don't think it doesn't. It's life. You didn't find it in a thing. It's not the beginning of The Exorcist where they find the statue in the desert. And so by repelling mythology on the monkey's part, I was able to kind of do a little bit of a, you know, sort of like a Macy's Day Parade version of like, where we can bring one shade of mythology through here, because what we've done is so patently surreal. Visual looks really good too. The guy who rides the horses, this guy's name is Danny Virtue, if you can believe that name. It's like a perfect name for like the quintessential Vancouver cowboy.
Hell of a face.
He's an incredible face, and he's been riding horses and doing horse tricks and things in Vancouver for, I mean, something like 70 years. I'm maybe exaggerating, but I don't think so. Anyway, to have him out there doing that was a super special honor too. Like, he's royalty in movies and in TV for being that guy. So to have him come out and do death for us was pretty special.
It's a toy monkey?
It's evil. It's basically the devil.
Oz, you've talked about Silence of the Lambs as it relates to Longlegs being an intentional touchstone for the audience. I want to know, when you were developing the monkey, did you have any films like that in mind as sort of guideposts for the audiences?
It wasn't so much that there were movies that I was trying to emulate. I was just trying to emulate the work of Mr. King and just sort of try to put together a movie that felt like a Stephen King movie. So within that, there was meant to sort of have this sort of an element of nostalgia. You know, it was important that it was going to be about fathers and sons. It was going to be about families. Then I was going to get cheeky at times, and I was going to name some of the characters. Like, I was going to name the babysitter Annie Wilkes, because why not? The sex ed teacher's name is Mrs. Torrance, because, you know, why not? The intention was less to sort of emulate a picture, as more the intention was to honestly just pay respect to the man who's on the phone call here with us. And to really just make it feel like that. And for me, it was, and Steven has already sort of hit on it, but it was the creep show flavor that I was really after. Because creep show was indelible for me as a kid, because I was a comic book kid. And so this unbelievable, beautiful Bernie Wrightson illustration and these fun stories where it was like, oh, he's entertaining me with horror. He's pleasing me with horror. He's joking with me. He's ribbing me with horror, and that felt good to me as a kid. So that was the flavor that we were after.
And Steven, did that come through for you when you watched The Monkey? That sort of that latent creep show love, because it does for me, certainly, and certainly even in some of the lighting choices you use, some of that very stark red and blue lighting every now and then.
By the time that the second cut showed up in my inbox, I understood what Oz Perkins was up to, and I loved it. There's always been an element of humor. I've got a script that's unsold. I don't know why it's unsold. It's called Tiny Horrors, and it's full of those kind of, it's like America's most horrible home videos. The kid who gets his tongue stuck to the doorknob in the wintertime. The guy who gets the scarf around his neck and pulled by his truck down the hill. And to me, that's just funny. That's all. I mean, I like it a lot. And it's what I said before. Humor and horror are not like separate dishes that can never touch on the plate. They they deserve to be mixed together. Now, people are going to see the monkey, and I don't know really if they're going to get how funny it is. You know, it's like being pitched that way to a degree, but I just don't know because people don't always have the sense of humor that Oz Perkins has and that I have, that James Wan has in some of the movies that we've seen, you know, and that's the great thing because that gives a kind of depth that movies like the Brutalist can't really compete with. They combine different feelings, and that's a great thing.
Everything okay up there?
Yeah, everything's fine.
James, I think you've kind of had eyes on this project for a long time as well. Have you seen it? It makes a lot of changes to the short story, the film version. Can you talk a little bit about just the overall journey that you've seen this thing go through and your reaction to how the final product came out?
We were pursuing this project for a while, and ultimately when Oz came into the picture, you know, the movie just basically came to fruition. It came to life, and now we can kind of see kind of what the film could be, kind of filtered through sort of Oz's filmmaking sensibility. Obviously, the one thing we knew there was a lot of absurdity to the potential set pieces, but not to the extent that Oz kind of took it to. And I like Mr. King, the first time I saw the first rough cut, I just thought I was howling as well. I was howling at many of the set pieces, and as Oz pointed out, like, you know, when the woman dived into the swimming pool and then she just exploded. I'm like, well, yes, Oz is right. Water and electricity doesn't really do that, but man, I was cracking up. I was having such a good time, and I ultimately just found myself just going on this crazy roller coaster from one sort of crazy set piece into another set piece. I knew from the get-go, I mean, I think this is testament to sort of Oz's filmmaking, is from the very start, from the very sort of opening with the two young kids and how they sort of came to be, and actually even the opening sequence with a father bringing in the monkey to try and get rid of it in the pawn shop, it just really set the tone. You kind of, from the get-go, you knew that this movie was gonna be fun, it's gonna be outrageous, and it's gonna sort of have shades of horror, but ultimately, you know, it kind of plays more as a black comedy for me than anything else. One of the things I actually wanted to ask you, Oz, is how is it to create these horror sequences around, like you said, basically an object that doesn't do anything? It's not like it's Freddy Krueger or Jason Voorhees, right? You're not shooting this guy coming after you, chasing after you with a knife. So like you have to create like a sense of dread, a sense of morbidity around basically an inanimate object. Was it difficult for you to shoot from a filmmaking perspective?
It wasn't, because we had such a good monkey, right? So it's like the monkey does so much of the heavy lifting when it comes to how we feel about the thing. Christian Convery plays the twins, and when he's on camera as both of them, he can't obviously be in both places, so he has a stand and a double that he acts opposite. The first time we kind of brought the monkey out to show to the kids, and we showed it to the stand-in, he looked at it and said, "Oh my God, I hate that so much." And I just, like, it wasn't that scares me so much, it wasn't, oh, that creeps me out, it was, I hate that so much. And it had this, like, it revulsed him. He was like repulsed by it. I hate that so much. And I was so gratified in that moment. I was like, oh, when? If a 13-year-old kid hates this thing, we've designed it properly. So, you know, the monkey's look does so much for both the comedy and the horror of it. He's really the all-star. He is the titular character. He is the star. So, you know, feeling good about the monkey that we had really helped. And then, you know, trying to keep everything sort of deadpan, right? Keep everything grounded into some level of reality. And for me, a level of reality is that these kids all say f all the time. Like, that's just funny to me. You don't see that in a lot of movies, I guess, these days, but you should. I mean, my 16-year-old daughter, all she says is f.
Yeah.
I don't think she knows any other words anymore.